Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mostyn Law's free pipe burst claim webinar. We just wanted to hop on and let you guys know about the experience that we have in the insurance industry and what we can do to help you with your insurance claims. My name is Amber Mostyn, and the Mostyn Law Firm has been handling first-party insurance claims or lawsuits for the past 20 years. We've done Hurricane Rita cases, Hurricane Ike, Hurricane Harvey, Superstorm Sandy, hail claims, and I even have an office in Puerto Rico where we are helping the people of Puerto Rico with their Hurricane Maria claims there as well. So I have with me tonight part of our Houston team. We've got Greg Cox, who's been practicing for 25 years and been with the Mostyn Law Firm for 13. We've got Caroline Maida, who's been practicing for 12 years. And we've got Michael Downey, who's been practicing for 7. So we're going to be answering some of the more common questions that we've received. As you guys can imagine, after Superstorm Uri, we've all been getting emails, texts, telephone calls. Our phones have really just been blowing up with people who have specific questions about filing their insurance claim. And tonight we're going to focus primarily on residential claims and not commercial claims. But if you have any questions about commercial claims, feel free to contact us. Like I said, we've been trying to get that information out just as fast and as furious as we could. So we decided to do this webinar to answer some of the more common questions that people are having. Our goal tonight is to give you the information that you need to file a good claim with your insurance company in the hopes that your insurance company pays your claim and you never need to come see us. And for the average homeowner, now is not the time to hire a lawyer. Now is the time to get the information together that you need to file your claim, submit it to the insurance company, and go through the claims process. And I think it's important to note that in 2003, Texas deregulated insurance policies. And, we've heard a lot about deregulation a lot lately, and specifically as it relates to the storm and the deregulation of the energy market here. Well, we've also deregulated insurance policies to a large extent. So there are some standard policies and some things that are common, but there's every question about a claim or a case against your insurance company is going to be dependent on your specific insurance policy and what coverage you have under the terms of that policy. So we're going to talk about some general standard language tonight. But if you have any questions after tonight and you're still wondering, are you entitled to be paid by your insurance company for specific damage that your home or your business suffered, please feel free to call us. We're offering free policy reviews, and we'll let you know what coverages we see in your policy so that when you make your claim and when you get an adjustment from your adjuster, you'll know whether you're being paid fairly under the terms of your policy. We're going to be answering some, like I said, frequently asked questions, but there'll also be a chat where you can submit questions. And if we don't get to your question tonight, again, we'll be going back through the comments and contacting folks. And you're always free to contact us either through our website, our chat on the website, through social media, through our webpage, mostynlaw.com, or any of the other social medias, and also at 1-800-TX-LAWYER. That's 1-800-TX-LAWYER. So with that having been said, we're first going to talk tonight to one of the attorneys at the office, Caroline Maida. She's in a unique situation because she's been practicing first-party law since she was first licensed and has been with our law firm since then. Hey, Caroline, how are you?
Hey, Amber, I'm doing well.
Okay, and you and I've already got to chat. Oh, good, great. You and I have already got to chat a little bit about your unique situation, and that's that you have your own insurance claim in this storm. So you can really understand what folks out there are going through and what kind of questions they have and what's just coming up for you throughout, from the moment you found the damage to at least where we are right now. So I'd like for you to let everybody out there know what's the most important things that they should do from the beginning when you first notice the damage.
Absolutely. So this is all fresh in my head because my adjuster was just out here today. And the first thing that he asked me when he came out was, do you have pictures of the damage or videos of the damage from when it happened? So the first thing after, of course, turning off your water and stopping the source of the damage that you should always do with damage to your home is assess it and document it as soon as possible. With the pipe burst situation, you're going to want to take photos and videos of how the water is coming into your home. For me, that was dripping through the ceiling. It was dripping down the walls. Mine was even coming through a window because the pipe was right above a window. So it looked like it was coming from outside, but it was actually coming from inside the wall. So having evidence of the damages as it's happening or as soon as you discover the damage to show the insurance company when making your claim is the most important tip that I can give to homeowners out there watching tonight. And another just tip that I learned is that it's so important when you're assessing and documenting your damages to remember that the photos and videos you're taking can only show you and show your insurance company and your adjuster the visible damage. And that's what you see, the wet sheetrock and the wet walls. But especially with water damage, it's likely that there's damage that's not visible or not immediately visible behind your walls or in the insulation because water travels quickly. So think wet insulation, wet studs behind your wall, water that may not have seeped all the way through the sheetrock yet to become visible in those photos and videos. So when you're inspecting, especially for water damage, I always advise, and that's what I did. This is what I did with my house. We have a handheld moisture meter. You just take the little handheld moisture meter, which you can find at Home Depot or Lowe's. You hold it up to the wall. It gives you a moisture reading. And it tells you how much moisture is in the wall and in the components behind the wall, like the insulation. And if you do use a moisture meter and you do get a high moisture reading, take a picture of that moisture meter against the wall so you can also send the adjuster and your insurance company a picture of the moisture level as it is read off of the moisture meter. This is all just gathering your own evidence for your insurance company to support your claim.
Great information, Caroline, because we've all seen situations where you have a slow leak somewhere. And I have a friend, I think we've talked about it already. She had a very dramatic leak in her kitchen in one of her rooms, only to find out the next day there was a ceiling falling in on her head that she hadn't even seen the day before. When you find damage like that, what is your duty as a homeowner and as the insurer, the owner of the policy? What is your duty at that point? What are you supposed to do?
So after documenting the damage to your home, when you find it, it's important that you immediately start mitigating the damage as soon as possible. So when I say mitigate the damage, mitigate is a word that comes directly from your policy, and it just means cleaning up the damage that's happened and preventing any further damage to your home from occurring. Think soaking up the water that's on the floor. And oftentimes it means ripping out wet sheetrock. And if you do have to rip out that wet sheetrock, it's a good idea. And we always advise clients and potential clients who call in and ask us for our advice that it's a good idea to save that debris. You can get the big black Contractor debris bags from Home Depot or Lowe's. Fill it up with everything that you need to tear out, everything that you see that's wet, so that you can begin the drying out process. And you fill up that bag, and I kept mine in my garage. And when he got here today, I lugged the big bag out and showed him, here's all my wet sheetrock. He was very appreciative to have that. He took pictures of it. So in my opinion, it was helpful for my claim for me to have that sort of evidence to show the adjuster. And it's just a nice further evidence
for them, huh?
Yes, yeah. Right here, you can take it for me too. Dispose of it.
And then, it's really wet here in Texas. It's damp, or in Houston, particularly humid here. And when you get like the inside of your walls wet and the sheetrock wet, what do you do about mold? And how do you handle that with the insurance company and the damage to your house?
Right. So part of ripping out the sheetrock and getting fans in your home to dry it out is to prevent mold. You know, especially like you said in Texas with water damage, where we were in our degrees were in the teens. One day it was 17 degrees, and then the next week we had temperatures in the 60s and 70s. You run the risk of your wet walls growing mold, and if the dampness from the walls and floors cause mold to grow other places in your home, it's likely that the insurance company won't cover that, or at least try to use that as an excuse not to pay part of your claim. So it's super important to start drying out everything as soon as possible to prevent that mold growth.
Okay. So when you're looking at the damage to your house and you're really trying to say like, and we're going to have a whole topic on this later about whether you should file a claim or not, but you're looking at it now, can you tell me just on, especially the visible damage that you see, what's covered? What type of damage is generally covered by a Texas homeowner's policy?
Right. So like you said earlier, you ask this question to any lawyer, I'm always going to say, and everyone's always going to say, it depends on your policy. I need to review it.
Depends.
Coverage, right? Yeah. But generally, I can say, you know, a vast majority of homeowners insurance policies cover sudden and unforeseen water damage resulting from the pipe break. So they're going to cover if your walls got wet, if your ceiling got wet, they're going to cover the cost to tear that out and redo it. But what generally is not covered especially in a pipe break situation, is the pipe break and plumbing work itself. But your policy may have an allowance to fix that damage, especially now since the freezing and bursting of the pipe is considered storm-related damage. So you need to review your policy carefully and always make the adjuster and the insurance company aware of the damage and let them make the coverage decisions. And then you with your policy or you with an attorney can review the decision to make sure it's the right one.
That's great advice. Now, I had an exterior pipe break. I had a pipe bust outside. And I've had a really good friend of mine call and say they had plumbing damage in their pool plumbing. What about those? Are those things generally covered under the standard policy? So
under the standard policy, generally exterior pipes, anything below grade. So think pool pipes, spas, hot tubs, sprinkler systems. I've heard a lot of people have sprinkler system busts because those are below grade, and any of the pipes in your foundation are generally not covered. But again, the lawyer answer, it does depend on your policy. So know your policy, and if you need help with your policy, that's what attorneys and experts like us are here for, to help you navigate that.
What if you don't have your policy? What do you do then?
So I read into this situation. I didn't have a full copy of my policy, mainly because everybody's going paperless. I emailed my insurance agent and they were able to get it to me within 30 minutes.
Yeah. Wow, that is pretty fast. I've heard a couple people had to wait a couple days, but that was much closer to the storm. So
right. Well, if you're going through the insurance company, it'll of course take longer.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Caroline. Can you stand by because we may have some more questions about your claim specifically?
Of course, I'm here.
Right, thanks. Great. I brought up with Caroline, we started to touch on whether you should file a claim. And sometimes that's hard to know. We all get worried about our insurance premiums going up if we file a claim. We get worried about the insurance companies not renewing our policies if we filed a claim. But that is what you paid for when you bought that insurance policy. You paid for the right to be covered if damage happens to your house. That's supposed to be covered under the policy. So I want to talk to Michael Downey a little bit about his thoughts on that and what are some of the things we should be looking for in our own claims to decide, do we file this claim, Michael?
So I think for most people, the short answer to the question is that if they're watching this webinar, they should probably go ahead and file a claim. Most people here are likely know they have problems. They're aware of issues that they've had at home, and have some questions about how the process goes. The Texas Department of Insurance put out a bulletin, and the law basically says that if you file a claim that was caused by natural causes, they can't raise your premiums. So that concern shouldn't be an issue in any of these situations. And so it does benefit people to just go ahead and at least get the process started. Like Caroline was talking about, ultimately the issue is assessing the damage. When we start to see throughout this process that the secondary issues that are causing the most problems, people see the hole in the pipe and they see the wet drywall, and those might be cheap fixes, but the secondary issues are really the problem. The wet insulation, the the ceilings that fall down, those problems are going to be costly. And we see the biggest problem that we have in these cases is explaining the 6-month or the 9-month delay between when the issue arose and when people ultimately filed a claim. Especially in water-related claims, it's very difficult if there's any sort of delay to get the insurance company on board that this was caused by a pipe burst as opposed to a elongated leak. And so
well, and you don't, and Michael too, the longer you wait, the more damage you may have because that water's been sitting there. You might have some wood rot, you may have some mold developing in there. You might even get some holes depending on where actually the leak was. And then you're not mitigating, right? You're not doing what you're supposed to under the policy.
Absolutely. The additional problems that come from it, not just the problems to your home, but the problems that you could be responsible for if you're not taking prompt steps to mitigate the damage. You definitely want to make sure that the problem is getting addressed as quickly as possible.
Now, Michael, I've already had some people tell me that their insurance company told them, they said, we're calling to report a claim. And the person on the phone said, tell us what happened and what you see. And the insurance company representative said, oh, that's going to be below your deductible. Don't even bother filing a claim. So can you talk about that? And can you talk about what a deductible is? For many people, this is new. They've never had to deal with an insurance claim before. They pay that bill, but they've never had to actually make a claim.
Right. For a lot of people, like you said, this is their first time. And so just to explain a little bit, the deductible is the part of the insurance claim that they are responsible for handling before the insurance company pays anything. Typically, for a water-related claim, it's 1%. So if you own a $200,000 house, it's a $2,000 deductible. And that would mean that if the repairs are expected to cost less than $2,000, that the insurance company wouldn't pay anything for it. And it's difficult to make that assessment from an initial call in about what the amount of total repairs is going to be. But that's definitely something that we are hearing a lot of, that people just assume these damages are going to be below deductible.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely a situation where you need to have a professional look at what the problem is, get a contractor, and we'll talk about that in even some more detail later. But, I wouldn't have any idea just eyeballing some damage, how much it's going to cost to fix it. So I wouldn't know if it's below or above my deductible. So once you filed a claim, what should you expect? Like you're the homeowner, you've assessed your damage, you've documented it, you've taken pictures and video of the damage, of everything you've torn out, put it in a big black plastic trash bag, like Caroline said, and you filed your claim now. So then what? Then what happens?
So the claims process, when it goes right, it goes pretty standard. The first that people should expect is to be contacted over the phone by an adjuster from the insurance company. Either sometimes they'll be what's known as an independent adjuster. This is kind of a misleading title. It's a adjuster that's not an employee of the insurance company, that is hired by the insurance company to investigate the claim. So they'll typically call over the phone. Most insurance companies say they expect that to happen within the first 24 hours after a claim is filed. After that, the next thing is that they'll set up a time to inspect the property. Typically, this is done in person with an adjuster coming to the home. We are hearing some reports and some issues about possibly doing virtual inspections instead of actually coming to the property. I was actually watching a news article that State Farm is intending to almost completely do virtual investigations of the 34,000 claims that they've already had filed. And
Wow. Like, how does that happen? How do you even do that?
so we respect that there's a kind of a difficult issue that they have with coronavirus and with the COVID issues. And they've got adjusters that are not employees from all over the country, and they're going to bring them to Texas. And so you've got the virus issues of people coming from all over, and they have to go into numerous houses every day. Part of the compensation model of how it works for them is that to get to a number of houses in a number of days to make their income. And so there are obviously risks that come along with that. And that is the difficult part of this process is how to balance those. And unfortunately, it makes me nervous, the idea that they're going to do virtual investigations. Basically, what it's going to be and what they put on the news when they were walking through one was asking the homeowners to identify all the areas of damage. And they were asking the homeowners, they actually asked them, one of them, what size shoe do you wear? And then had them walk across the floor measuring out steps in an effort to evaluate how big the room was. And personally,
Wow.
that scares me.
Are you
That's not how
serious?
this should be done.
I hadn't heard that yet. Yeah.
And that was one that they put out as kind of like they thought they did it well. And so that's a concern. If you do have a virtual investigation, it can be done well. So I'm not saying that it's not ever proper, but be very careful. People need to actually do measurements with a tape measure. Hopefully most people have them. They need to use, like Caroline was talking about, the water moisture meters on the walls to check and see if there are issues. And most importantly, have a contractor come out and look at it and write a detailed estimate of what it's going to cost to do all the repairs properly. Because the insurance companies, it hopefully should take that into consideration, that a contractor says this is what's going to cost and isn't just guessing based on what they've seen through a video chat with a client.
Well, and I would think if the adjusters can do it and will at least, really consider the estimates of the insureds and the input of the homeowner, the virtual adjustments would be more efficient. You can fit it into your schedule and the adjuster schedule. And one thing I wanted to point out, you were talking about adjusters coming from all over. Normally, you would have licensed Texas adjusters. But because this was a disaster, Governor Abbott is allowing adjusters to come in from out of state. So they're not licensed by the state of Texas. But, so I think that's really important too when we talk about documenting your file. And can you flesh that out a little bit? I mean, some folks may have 2, 3, even we've seen 4 or 5 different adjusters in a claims file.
Right. And the thing that people need to remember is that what the adjuster says, the initial determination, isn't the end all be all for a insurance claim. They can, as an insured, they have the right to disagree and to voice their disagreement with the insurance company.
Okay, well, how do they do that? What do you do if you disagree with the insurance company's decision? Like, what's that process like?
So the most important part of that process is documentation. I tell anyone that while they're given a phone number and it's always easier to call and talk to someone, it's better to keep written notes if you call, and it's even better to communicate in writing so that you have some evidence and some explanation of what you can show, what communication efforts have been made to the insurance company. And if you have disagreements about their decisions, you should first get a contractor out there to explain what it's going to take to repair the damages properly and in full, and then send that to the insurance company and explain to them why what their decision isn't enough to get all the repairs done right. And ultimately, people have the right to request that someone else, another adjuster or a manager or someone, look at it. We all joke about the person on the phone requesting to talk to a manager, but in the situation of tens of thousands of dollars or even possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars of insurance claims, you need to take the time to get it right. And if that means that you need to speak to to a manager or someone else, everyone has that right. We see all the time that claims have multiple adjusters because honestly, different adjusters handle claims differently. And sometimes just asking for someone else can get the problem fixed. And you don't ever have to talk to an attorney. You don't ever have to call us. if you can just get someone else to look at it, sometimes they'll make the right call and actually get it taken care of properly.
Well, and you said earlier that it's really important to document, and we've talked about documenting the damage, taking pictures and video, and keeping everything in a trash bag. And then, but you were speaking more specifically about documenting your claims process. And I know I've talked to Caroline before, and she told me she takes really detailed notes every time she talks to somebody on the phone, so that she'll be able to say, like, this is the conversation that we had. But you mentioned that even though it's a pain, to also follow up in writing with everything. And I just wanted to re-emphasize that to the people who are watching, to really make sure that you follow up either by email or by letter or by fax and get your information. If you disagree with it, say, I have a contractor's estimate, here it is, and that you actually send the paper in. I think that's great advice, Michael. Well, thank you, Michael. I think we're going to talk a little bit now about how you get a contractor's estimate. I mean, one of the big issues that folks are running into right now is this storm covered almost the entire state of Texas. And so it's not easy to find a plumber. It's not easy to find other contractors and other trades, and folks are having to wait. But I've asked Greg Cox to come on and talk with us about how you hire a good contractor and what you're supposed to look for, even when you're desperate and you want to get your damage fixed as quickly as possible. What are some of the do's and don'ts, Greg? What are some of the problems you've seen before?
Sure. We see this after almost every large-scale event. Unfortunately, people are desperate to get back in their homes and go on living their lives. Sometimes that prompts them to just try to rush things along, and I would try to discourage that as much as we all want to restore the water to our house and get back into it. I would say that the most important thing is to take your time and do your homework. And that means thoroughly vetting anyone that you're going to hire to do repairs. Don't let anyone rush you into signing a contract to make repairs or giving them cash up front. You need to ask your friends and your relatives who they have used for repairs in the past. Ask any contractor for references. If you can, try to find someone who's local and who's been in business for a long time. Anyone that's reputable should have been doing this for years and should have references. You probably don't want to hire someone who can't give you a single reference. That's a red flag. They may be new to the business and not really have the experience to make the repairs correctly, or they may be someone from out of state. Unfortunately, we see this after every disaster that people know that there are people in Texas that are desperate to get repairs, and they come in from out of state and out of town and try to take advantage of those people. And it's sort of heartbreaking because you hear all these stories where someone has given over their savings to someone or signed over their insurance check completely to someone. And if you do that, that may be the last time you ever see that person. That's just something everyone has to be aware of. And please take your time to get the right person, not just the first person.
Because it's similar to other storms, Governor Abbott has allowed out-of-state plumbers to come in. So plumbers, again, are licensed here in Texas, but when we have a disaster, particularly of this scale, the governor often, and in this storm, has decided to allow out-of-state plumbers to come in. That's sort of the first thing that everybody's desperate about, right? And particularly on the cases that we handled on Hurricane Ike, where people had severe roof damage or just roof damage, we heard story after story of some roofer or other tradesman almost kind of going down the street and helping this neighbor, helping the next house, helping the next house. And then a few months later, when people have problems, they're gone. They're not in Texas anymore. They don't have an office here. It's not very easy to find them, to even talk to them about it, and they're not coming back to fix it, right?
Exactly. Just be very careful. I would say a good rule of thumb is to trust your instincts. I think people have, we all sort of have this sense that if someone is telling us something that sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If a contractor is asking for, cash money up front and they're going to fix all your problems if you just give them $1,000, et cetera, that should probably raise your antenna a little bit. And if it doesn't sound right, it probably isn't right.
Speaking of things that just aren't right, also, I know I've been in a situation before where I had somebody who was doing work that was supposed to be covered by insurance, and they did an estimate for me, and they basically told me that they would cut the deductible out of my estimate once I got my insurance money. And I can't do that, right? They can't do that.
They cannot do that in Texas, and that's a problem with a lot of people coming in from out of state. That may be how they do business elsewhere. But that's a big no-no in Texas. They can get in trouble for that, and I think you can get in trouble for doing something like that. The deductible is your responsibility, and you're supposed to pay that part of the claim.
Right.
So just be careful with people telling you, "Oh no, this is how we do it." Again, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
It is, yeah. So, Greg, what about, we are preaching a lot of patience tonight, just telling homeowners to be patient, to make sure to properly assess their damage, document it, file their claim, and just be patient, because the insurance companies get a little bit more time to respond, and all the adjusters are very busy. So everybody just be patient, do it right. What did my grandma used to say? Measure twice and cut once, right? Yeah. So do it right. But what if you can't even live in your home? Then what are you supposed to do? Yeah. And, I know we all know people. Caroline has a very good friend. Their whole bottom floor of their house has been taken down to the studs. Yeah. So they can't live there. What do you do then?
Well, many Texas homeowners policies include coverage called additional living expense coverage. And like you said, and Caroline talked about initially, you need to familiarize yourself with your policy and see which coverages you purchased. If you have this coverage, what it entitles you to do is to go and live somewhere else, something that's similar to your home, that's a nice place to stay, maybe a hotel, maybe you would rent an apartment if it's going to be a long time that you're going to be out of your home, and to maintain your standard of living. It will pay for any additional living expenses, and that would include things even like going to eat in restaurants. If you can't stay in your home because it's uninhabitable because of a covered loss, which the frozen pipes and lack of water would be a covered loss that would make your home uninhabitable, then you can go and stay somewhere else. And if you keep your receipts for what you spend on your hotel, keep your receipts for what you have to go and buy food at a restaurant for, and then submit those under your coverages, and that should be covered by your insurance company. Now, this kind of coverage is a little different because it only is a reimbursement coverage. In other words, you have to spend the money and then ask for it to be reimbursed. And if you don't spend the money and you don't actually incur the expense, you can't claim it. So,
well, Greg, what if you don't have that money? What if you don't have the money for a hotel for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however long it's going to take to get the adjuster out and then get the contractor out and get the damage repaired?
Yeah, that is a problem for a lot of people in this situation. And you can talk to your insurance company. What you should do is verify that you have that coverage available under your policy, and then talk to your adjuster and tell them that the home is unlivable and that you want to go stay somewhere else. They will, a lot of times they will approve it in advance and can give you money toward that at sort of on a per diem basis. Sometimes they will say, okay, we'll give you, $200 a day for hotel and another $50 a day for food, or you can work out some sort of an agreement up front with them to help cover that expense in the short term. But yeah, don't be shy about asking for this coverage. Look at your policy. It should be listed in your policy as either ALE, which is the initials for additional living expense, and talk to your adjuster and ask for the benefits because you've paid for them. They're part of the policy that you bought. And if you've got it, you need to exercise that coverage.
So I had someone call and ask me, they had looked through their policy and they saw the word uninhabitable.
Yes.
And they were asking me, what does this mean? How do I determine if my home is uninhabitable? What is the standard? And I don't think I can live there right now, but I need to know what's the standard?
Yeah, that's a sort of a term of art that is in the insurance industry. And what it means is basically that you can't safely and healthfully stay in your home. The lack of running water, which is the most common side effect of this storm and the frozen pipes, is the fact that you can't cook in your kitchen, you can't wash your dishes, you can't use your restrooms and bathe and maintain hygiene. I think as a matter of law, I think that's clear that would make that home uninhabitable. If you can't cook,
Okay.
you can't maintain your standard of living in that home, that would entitle you to the additional living expense benefits, in my opinion.
Okay. Now, we have a former client who called, and actually she FaceTimed me, and she wanted me to show me that her entire living room, water poured in from the ceiling, and it ruined her couch. Her couch is just waterlogged, and she wanted to know what to do about it and if it was going to be covered, and just what she should do next. So can you tell the folks out there, what do you do about damage to furniture, electronics, and just other contents inside your home, not the actual walls and ceilings?
Yeah, most homeowners policies in Texas will provide some amount for contents coverage. It's either referred to as contents, meaning anything that your home contains, your personal property, your furniture, your artwork on the wall, your clothing, your shoes, electronics. Obviously, electronics don't do well if they get wet. It can be very damaging to that. So anything that you furnish your home with, including your personal possessions, is generally covered if it's damaged by a pipe leak, pipe burst. So you just need to look at your policy. What you're looking for is either an amount of coverage for personal property or contents coverage. They use those terms interchangeably in many policies. So just look for that type. You should have a certain amount of coverage that's listed in your policy for those types of damages. And it's a little bit of a specialized coverage in the sense that you have to provide the insurance adjuster with a list of the damaged items. You can do something as simple as get a piece of notebook paper, but you have to list out in detail each of the damaged items, describing it. For instance, if you write down a 40-inch color television, you need to tell the adjuster how much you paid for that television or what it would cost to buy a replacement television. And then you need to give them some idea of when you purchased it to figure out if it's subject to depreciation for being too old to be replaced. So you have to provide that information to the adjuster. The adjuster is not going to come to your house and spend 5 hours going through every personal item that got damaged by water. That's up to you. But again, just like all the other documentation you spoke about, it's very important to do it right. Submit it
pictures, video. Is that helpful when you're talking about contents?
Absolutely. Pictures can be great if you're showing something, you can take a picture of the television. That way you can get the model number or the serial number, the make of the television. You can submit pictures to back up any claims you have. That's very helpful. But keep copies of the documents and pictures that you submit, and make sure you get it to the adjuster and to the insurance company directly, either by fax or email, however you can. And then they will process your contents claim and hopefully pay you for all the replacement of your damaged property.
Great. And I know a lot of policies also have an allowance for food spoilage. So the food that was in your refrigerator, if you're making a claim and you did have food that went bad, put that in the claim as well, right? Because a lot of policies can cover up to $500, right?
Some of them do. They're all, yes. Again, you have to read each one of the policies. After the hurricane that we experienced in Houston, a lot of insurance companies sort of tried to limit these type of claims because they were so common. But ask for that kind of coverage. Again, there's no harm in asking your adjuster for anything that you think you're entitled to. Let them review the policy and tell you whether or not it's going to be covered. But that's common to find that type of coverage as well.
Okay, so now we've gone through assessing your damage, documenting it all, filing your claim, what types of coverage you might have. What do you do if the insurance company tries to blame you for it or for the damage, or is not going to pay you what you think you're owed. And unfortunately, this is what we've spent most of both of our careers working on, is helping people whose insurance company either flat out denied them and didn't pay them, and tried to come up with some reason under the policy for that, or had paid, way underpaid them, right? They just didn't pay them what the insured was entitled to in order to fix their home. So what do you do if you get to that point?
Yeah, I think this is another area where you just sort of trust your instincts. When you think something in your home that was damaged should be covered and the insurance company is telling you they're not going to pay for it, you have a pretty good sense for right and wrong. I think most people do. And that's when you need to talk to us. You need, or some other professional. You need to get someone involved that can understand the intricate parts of an insurance policy. Because a lot of times insurance policies, although they're written in black and white, they sometimes have gray areas that are subject to interpretation, and that's why you.
Well, they're written in black and white, but tiny letters and very long with a lot of words that most of us don't normally use, right?
You definitely need your glasses to read the fine print like I do, because there's a lot of that in there, and it's difficult to understand. And sometimes even the adjusters who are handling the claims, again, especially if they're out of town adjusters from another state, they may not be familiar with Texas insurance code regulations and the policies here. So don't be afraid to challenge their decisions, and you need to get a professional that knows how to read the policy and how to interpret the policy to help you. And that's
and when you say interpret, so there's the actual, just the language of the policy, and then you mentioned the code. Yes. And then we also know that there's case law that takes both the language of the policy, the insurance code, and then interprets it. And that's something that just your average homeowner is not even going to have access to. Can you talk about those three pieces and how they work together and trying to figure out if the insurance company owes you?
That's what we do as insurance coverage attorneys, is we look to see, if damage can be covered under the policy, and we advocate for that. The policy is the starting point for every claim, but it's not necessarily the ending point. Every policy is subject to regulation by the Texas Department of Insurance, and they have rules for how those policies are supposed to be interpreted. A lot of times that gives the benefit of the doubt to the insurance, the insured, the homeowner, and against the insurance company. A good example might be what we had talked about before, is if you think your home is uninhabitable, that is sort of a generic term. And it may depend on interpretation. If your home was had all the sheetrock torn out of it, and had exposed wiring, there's a good argument that could be made that would make it uninhabitable because it might be dangerous. If you have small children and you have electric wires running through your walls, you might not want to stay in there. And the adjuster may say, well, no, you still have the basics in your home. Water's been restored. Your house is not uninhabitable. So if you got an attorney to advocate for you, they might be able to change their mind based on prior case law and interpretations of that term uninhabitable by the Texas Department of Insurance.
Great. Thank you, Greg. Thanks so much. So folks, we're going to wrap it up now. We've been looking through the chat, and I feel like we've addressed most of the questions that we received and some of the frequently asked questions and that we've been getting along the way. But again, if you have any further questions or you need specific help with your policy, don't hesitate to contact us. We're offering free insurance policy reviews to let you know what kind of coverage you have. And unfortunately, I think what you have probably picked up on a little bit throughout this webinar is that as lawyers, our answer is always, it depends, right? So not trying to be too annoying with those kind of answers, but unfortunately, that's just the way it is. When it comes to your specific policy, we have to see that language in order to be able to give you a good idea about whether the damage and what you went through in this storm is actually covered by your insurance company and whether they should be paying for it. So if you go through this whole process of assessing your damage, properly documenting it with pictures and video, filing your claim with the insurance company, following up with the adjusters, getting a contractor's estimate, and doing all of that. And you still feel like after you told the insurance company they're not giving you enough money to help repair the damage or to pay you back for having to stay in a hotel, what have you. If you feel like you're still not getting what you deserve from the insurance company, certainly call us then. But at this point right now, the best thing that you can do is to go over the steps that we talk about, file your claim, be patient, and then come back and see us if you have to. At this point, the most important thing for you is get a good claim on file. So I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. Again, you can visit us at mostynlaw.com, where we have all of these resources, and you can email us and chat us also from that website. That's mostynlaw.com. You can also call us at 1-800-TX-LAWYER. So that's 1-800-TX-LAWYER. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I hope that you and your family are doing well even after the storm, and we appreciate you joining us.